This is the Jeff Santos Show.
Mr. Boss Man, won't you hear me when I call? Mr. Boss Man, won't you hear me when I call? Yeah, well, you
that is the great voice of our next guest, MTC Mark Taylor-Canfield.
Boss Man, we don't need any more wars. Mr. Boss Man, we don't need any more wars. Yeah, we've had too many already. Ain't going down that road no more. Yeah, Mr. Boss Man, won't you hear us when we call? Mr. Boss Man, won't you hear us when we call? Yeah, well, you ain't so big now. You just talk, that's all. Yes, and now you ain't so big now. You just talk, that's all.
All right, now that is an intro of intros. The next guest is our regular guest here every 5:30, Democracy Watch News, here on the Jeff Santos Show every Friday at 5:30. Does stuff with Daily Kos, does some stuff with the Seattle Star. He is the Renaissance man. He is Mark Taylor-Canfield, and he joins us from the 206 Seattle WA. How you doing, Mark?
Oh, that sounds great, Jeff. You and Ron have a great sound going on right now. You're doing a great job. And my friend was texting me saying that they were listening next door dancing because they could dance through the wall because I had it cranked up here for a while. But yeah, that was part of a shout-out. That was part of a shout-out that the whole city did. It was just a request by the city, the city mothers and fathers, the Department of Neighborhoods and stuff, said, hey, everybody go out on your balcony, on your porch, in your backyard, and give a shout-out at 8 o'clock. Make some joyful music or something in appreciation for all of the people on the front lines of this public health crisis. So, but I wanted to tell you, I'm sitting here with a cup from Boston, by the way, and you know how it is. My mom went to Boston, but all I got was this mug. So I'm sitting here.
Well, I hope it's a Red Sox World Champion one or something like that. But anyways, go ahead, though.
I want to visit Boston and check out all City. And by the way, thanks for playing the Bostonian JFK earlier, one of my heroes, along with
fantastic.
Mahatma Gandhi, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Henry David Thoreau. Those are the people that kind of helped shape my thinking as a young man. And it is a beautiful day here in Seattle, but don't tell anybody. I'm totally holed up in the recording studio, and I've been working on these orchestral arrangements for my composition called Quarantine Suite. And I had the opportunity to work with some really talented musicians on this and some good sound engineers, so I'm finishing that up. But I got my coffee mug here. I'm ready to go. And actually, I guess on Thursday, as executive director of Democracy Watch News, I'll be part of an interview of Mike Gravel. He'll be in our international press briefing talking about his new book called The Failure of Representative Democracy and some solutions on how to deal with that, which from his point of view includes direct democracy, because his attitude is that representative democracy has been failing us, so people got to get directly involved.
Well, just look at today in Wisconsin. That's a great example of it. And the Alaska senator there, probably beside himself as many other progressives are, on this very issue. And this is really a tragic time in our history, that we're forcing people to go and vote under these conditions. And one of the more disgusting things we have seen, there's no morality anymore in government. And that's why I think people across this nation, tragically enough, don't trust their government. They look at the Congress as just a pathetic bunch of people who kowtow to the special interests and the 1%. That's what has to change. And I think what you have done, along with many of your neighbors, in congratulating the first responders and the nurses and the healthcare professionals and what they're doing to try to save people's lives, is really what I think people are having to look for. Because they don't see, maybe 50 years ago they did, or even before than that, an activist government, which we saw between 33 and 66 with people like Roosevelt and Kennedy and King and others, we're pushing for. Unfortunately, today it's more about, I got mine, to hell with you. And unfortunately, it's been that way for a good, 40, 50 years. Let me ask you this, Mark. One of the things we love to talk about with you is music, of course. How has it changed over the last 2 or 3 weeks? I mean, we mentioned the people and yourself out there, talking through apartment windows and stuff and so on. But, I mean, has the scene completely stopped because, these clubs are not open for safety reasons? What have you been finding out in your world around 206?
Well, Jeff, this is Mark Taylor-Canfield reporting from Seattle, where you can hear a pin drop at night because it's a ghost town. There's nothing going on, Jeff. Nobody can perform. Even great Monday night jams at Nectar Lounge, where all the great musicians in Seattle would get together and just kind of play for each other and form new bands and projects and things. That's not happening. So now I have a couple friends in a band called Wolfchild that actually got some national attention and got some attention from NPR because of their Tiny Desk concert series. They won an award because of their video and stuff. So they performed at KEXP live in the lobby, because KEXP is a great music station where bands love to play. They have the live room where my friend Eva Walker and the Black Tones played a historic live performance that I'll never forget. It's on their website, by the way. KEXP.org has all of the live room performances recorded there, and they have a really good professional camera crew, multi-cameras, and so good stuff. But none of that is happening right now. But Wolfchild, that is the two brothers. So Gabriel and his brother live together. They share the same house. So they're kind of a band already. They're family, and they live together, so they're playing music anyway. So some people do have some outlets for that. Now, I'm surrounded by electric guitars and drum sets and keyboards and violin, cellos, you name it. And lots of toys, too, because we like to have lots of toys in the studio. Yes, musicians are kind of like little kids sometimes. And so there's lots of robots and race car, car tracks and fun things to do, when you're waiting for your turn to go up on the mic or, to lay down your tracks. Plus, it helps keep people, I think, creative when they come in. So there's lots of funny toys and antique telephones and weird things sitting around for people to check out. So I would say that if I'm going to hunker down in the bunker here during this sort of quarantine season, then this is the place to be, because I've got food, I've got water, and believe it or not, Jeff, there is a God. I have toilet paper. And
my word.
90%
Don't tell us where you got it, Mark. I think people will be flying there in 2 seconds.
Yeah, well, it wasn't the black market, okay? I didn't have to sell anything or barter anything. Actually, I just happened to be going by a place where a friend works at a drugstore, and he said, Mark, get in here, because it probably lasted, maybe a half hour before they sold out. And it's a huge supply. It's like a Costco size. So I'm doing good, Jeff. Life is good for me, because I actually have this stuff that I've been looking for. I know I was talking to you over the weekend about we were traipsing around town trying to get supplies because we couldn't get any of the grocery stores to deliver. They said on Saturday, oh, yeah, we'll get you your groceries on Wednesday. And I was thinking, well, But, that's the situation. But I'm in a studio surrounded by all the things I love. And there's a huge framed poster of David Bowie, another one, for some reason, of Audrey Hepburn, but that was my girlfriend's idea. And then a lot of my friends' art who live in Seattle. I also have a lot of really great artists as friends who were painters and tattoo artists and stuff. So I have some of their prints and paintings. I have a gold 45 of Hey Joe by Jimi Hendrix with a photo of him that's framed up on the wall for a little bit of inspiration.
But, I mean, what a legend. Maybe the greatest guitarist of all time. How is he looked at? I mean, in the age of grunge from 25 years ago to Macklemore and others. I mean, what is the legacy of Hendrix today in 2020?
There is no one in Seattle music that has a higher status than Jimi Hendrix. He's my soul brother. I mean, my God, the way that I play guitar is directly related to his playing. And I had a dream one time where he taught me some licks. Jeff, I'm not kidding. And I will never forget that.
It's a reoccurring dream, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, and I walk by a statue of him on the street on Broadway on Capitol Hill in Seattle quite often. And we often, take our pictures with him. And I really like my Strat, which is what he preferred. We have similar tastes in music because I really, as you could tell from the Mr. Bossman song, I like funky rock. I really like funky music, and I've always been into Les Claypool and stuff like really syncopated music. So it was Jimmy. All of his rock and roll, to me, has got some soul and some funk and some blues in it, and that's what makes it so beautiful. There's nothing that he did that sounded formulaic, like, oh, I guess I'll just write a song with these 3 chords. No, he was into everything he did. The funny thing that a lot of people don't realize, and believe me, every guitar player in Seattle, pretty much that I know anyway, worships Jimi Hendrix. I mean, he is the top of the pantheon here. But he did some shows, and most people don't know this, but I have a bootleg recording of him, and it was when he played in Seattle, and he was really high. Let's put it that way. He didn't really stick to the songs very much. He just kind of started the song and then would go off in the middle all over the place. But the band was sort of used to that. They were never quite sure what he was going to do next, whether he was going to set the guitar on fire or play it with his teeth or smash it. I mean, it wasn't the grunge bands that started smashing guitars. Jimi Hendrix was doing that. It was actually The Who and Pete Townsend that I think started all that. I have this feeling that I'd like to go in front of the Showbox Theater, actually, and smash a few guitars during a show just as a tribute to that place because, man, there's some great music in Seattle, and all the places that Jimi Hendrix has played, people love to go to and check out. It's kind of like he's just, I don't know, there's just something about his style and the honesty behind his music. But there are these stories that he went to the Fillmore West one time, and you had Bill Graham, who had the Fillmore East in New York and the Fillmore West in San Francisco. All the great psychedelic rock bands would play there in the 60s and 70s. So he goes out and he plays the show, and he sets his guitar on fire and does all sorts of things and licks his guitar and you name it, he does it. He comes off stage and asks Bill Graham, and this could be a total apocryphal story, but I heard it on the local FM rock station here, and he says, Bill, how'd you like the show? And Bill says, Jimmy, you spun the guitar around your head, you danced with it, you sat on it, you laid on your back, and you set it on fire, you played it with your teeth, but there's one thing you forgot to do. He's like, what? He's like, you forgot to play the damn song. And he made important. He made them go out and do another song. He's like, now go play the song the way that people want to hear it. I have a bootleg recording of Jimmy, and you can tell that he's just kind of improvising in the middle of the song. He's not sticking to it. But then you think about it, a lot of bands, they get stuck with a hit song that they play on every show the rest of their life. And I know Jim Morrison said something like that about Light My Fire, where he was like, he hated that song because they want to hear that one again. Once you get a hit, then these people expect you to play it all the time. But Seattle's more of an alternative music kind of place these days. So the bands that I love, like Shayna Shepherd and BearAxe and Eva Walker and the Black Tones, they're playing a kind of really raw music. It's almost, they call it garage music sometimes, but it's really well done.
Well, let me ask you, because they all come from something else. And I know that we have talked in the past, both on and off the air, of some of the icons that you've interviewed and talked with. So, when you hear the word alternative, you think of Eddie Vedder and Pearl Jam, you think of our friends Nirvana, as you mentioned. But even further back, the David Johansens, the Peter Gabriels, the New York Dolls, Reed and all. You've had a chance to interact with a lot of these folks, too. When you talk to the Black Tones as an example, do they connect with oh yeah, I grew up listening to X, or they were inspiring to me, so that's why we try to have this sound?
Eva Walker definitely is very much influenced by Jimi Hendrix, and it's very obvious in her playing as well, and she makes that very clear. I think a lot of bands really like a local band here called the Melvins. And they are really kind of the grandfathers of rock and roll in Seattle. I mean, I got to hang out with Buzz Osborne. That's their lead singer. He's still got the crazy hairdo that just makes him look totally insane. But he's a great guy. You know, they were playing, they were setting up another band, Red Cross, that day. They were doing their sound check, and the bartender says, "Are you here to see the Melvins?" I'm like, "Yeah." And she goes, "Well, I think that's them doing a sound check." So I go back there, and the next thing I know, I'm hanging out with the band. You know, that's the way Seattle is.
Right.
And the security people were like, "Oh, I guess he's with the band." Nobody said anything. But it was fun. In Seattle, you can literally meet your most inspiring musicians, and there's some things that I'll never get out of my head, like watching Keith Emerson from Emerson, Lake and Palmer at this club called Graceland, which is now called El Corazon. And it used to be called the Off-Ramp at one point. It's got a long history of music. But he literally kicked his Hammond B3 organ off the stage, and it hit the floor, and then he jumped off the stage and started stabbing it with a knife.
Oh,
and you don't see that every day, right? Part of his act. Apparently he does that a lot.
Ozzy with the bird, is that the concept?
Apparently he just wanted to stand out and make people remember him. And also I met David Johansen and the New York Dolls there, and I think it was the original band plus a new drummer. And Seattle is kind of a laid-back place. There's no paparazzi here. It's not like L.A. where everybody is all about the bling and the fame
right.
You know, driving the Mercedes. Here it's more like on the download, so if David Johansen is in town, he's kind of enjoying the fact that he can just stand outside of El Corazon and, you know, smoke a joint or whatever, and nobody bothers him. Like, he can just do what he wants, and they can play to a crowd of people that they know love music, because Seattle audiences and have actually often been compared to New York audiences in that they're very particular and kind of spoiled, because there's so many musicians here. You know, the joke is everybody's a musician, and their mom and their brother and their dog. And anyway, I won't go into that, because there are a lot of jokes about musicians. Let's put it that way. The motto for the city is, "I need a drummer." But everybody is a musician here, so when you perform, they tend to really pay attention. They stare at your hands to see what chords you're playing and what your technique is and what brand of guitar you're playing and what the amp is. And they're really into it, because most of them are musicians that are in the crowd. So everybody appreciates music on a really personal level. And one thing that I've noticed, Jeff, by the way, recently, is that there's this new phenomenon where there's a lot of online music concerts, and that's how the musicians and bands are dealing with the fact that they're not performing in the clubs right now. And a lot of the clubs are really, really suffering, so I'm very, very concerned. There's a lot of fundraisers going on, but I'm very concerned about the arts, Jeff, because they're already on a shoestring budget, and now seeing this happen. I hope that our representatives in government come up with some grants specifically for arts and non-profit.
Well, I want to ask you about that from your world. You've been fighting to save the Showbox for a number of years now. I mean, what happens, you know, and I hope this doesn't happen, but let's just say that can't get back to normal until June or July. I mean, could it close down? I mean, what is the status in that kind of situation?
Everything is pretty much on hold. So as far as I know, and I've been keeping in touch with Historic Seattle, which is the group that's been spearheading the campaign to save the Showbox. They sent out an update just recently within the last week and didn't say anything about the company that owns the Showbox and their plans. And the strategy of the people who own the building at the moment is to just kind of play rope-a-dope with the city. In other words, they just keep extending the deadline every month. You know, I go to these hearings and they want another extension, because they don't like the idea that the city is forcing them to save some of the historic parts of the building. So they're just complaining a lot, and I don't know what they're waiting for. Maybe they're hoping that the Landmark Preservation Board just gets tired of it. I don't know what their strategy is. Everything's kind of on hold. I'm hoping that they don't pull a quick card trick on us in the last minute that we didn't see coming. I hope that's not going to happen. But there are these online concerts, and that's the only breath of air that I see in the whole thing, because they are keeping the music going. People are pretty much performing every night online now on Facebook and YouTube and Instagram, and what they're doing is performing maybe just one person or a small group of people or a band, but they're either staying 6 feet away from each other, or they happen to live in the same house or whatever, so they next to each other, and it creates this really sort of intimate sort of thing. Even when the artist is on the stage, Some of the people are performing actually in clubs up on a stage or in their rehearsal space up on a stage. But it still seems really intimate. And there was a lot of solo performers, singer-songwriters is already sort of an intimate kind of music. So sitting in your apartment and you put on this live concert. My friend Jim Page is one of the people who does that up here. And you feel like you're there in the room with him. It's really an intimate kind of setting. And it's a way that musicians don't normally get treated, by the way. Even in Seattle, where there are a lot of musicians in the audience paying close attention, you're still in a bar, right? So there are some people that are just there getting drunk and not paying attention at all. But when you're doing these online concerts, people are really paying attention because they're sitting right in front of the screen, and there's no distraction usually around you like you normally would have in a club. So it's a very interesting phenomenon, and I'm seeing it grow exponentially every single day, every hour. It's just incredible how it's...
Well, that's great. People need to get their entertainment, whether it's sports or music or entertainment of any sort, and I think it's so critical. And for the artists themselves to keep themselves moving and be viable as we move forward. Hey, I only got a couple of minutes, and we do a political show around these parts. So I wanted to get in one question to you before we roll. One of the things that I have been watching with Bernie Sanders doing his webinars and so forth is that he has on these musicians. Now, one of the things that I've also been saying is that he needs to attract older voters. We have our great caller here, Rudy, who's in his 80s, and stays on to listen to all the guests because he doesn't even have